we've done artists who they initially started by being completely done up. Their hair was done, their nails were done, they were in the studio, they were so ready. And then after the fourth session, they were just like lying in their bed, eating chicken wings. And but honestly, like the fan is still sitting there going, oh my God, this is your house. Is that your dog? Right. Is that your son? Is that your boyfriend? The fans get something out of this that no one ever has before.
Hey everyone, this is Profesh Sesh, the podcast, and I'm your host, Sophia Welch. Every week, Profesh Sesh is presenting conversations with smart, successful, no BS music industry professionals, all with the goal of helping new artists and those who support them build their creative careers with great advice, stories, tips, and insights. We know how we feel at a great concert, but what makes that concert work behind the scenes? That is where today's guest comes in, Melanie Macaulay of the renowned concert producing company Stage Pilot, whose entire career has been about orchestrating amazing live and virtual events, from ticketing to promotion to VIP packages, everything in between. Her insights will expand your mind and I think change how you think as a performer, a manager, and a fan. So let's hit it. You are, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you are in an executive position where you are in the business of making sure that artists have these spectacular live experiences and spectacular experiences with their fans. So I want to start with, what is the first concert that you ever went to? And what's the concert that you've been involved in that you are the most proud of?
It's a twofold answer. So there's the first one I was taken to, which obviously you don't get a huge amount of choice by that, but it was officially my first concert, which was Jean-Michel Jarre, who I don't know if anyone over here will know him. He's a French electro pioneer. But the first one that I paid money to go see was Faith No More at Brixton Academy with L7 supporting, and that was incredible. As I think I was 12, 13, and it was everything I needed it to do. I was young and bouncing around, and it was wonderful.
Was it that you were a huge fan and so just seeing them, or was there anything special that they did that you were like, that is everything?
It was the first one that me and my mum took us. We all my friends were all staying over that evening because it was finishing at 11, and that's very late when you're 12 years old. So we all kind of went together in our stripy tights and DMs and tasseled skirts and stuff. And it really was kind of eye-opening. That was kind of the beginning. After that, we went to, festivals every year, went to a million different shows after that. That was, for me, the perfect entryway into, and then at Brixton Academy, which is my favorite venue in the world as well. So it was kind of, it all came together quite beautifully from that. The one I'm most proud of, it's really hard to answer that question. I've worked on a million shows. It's anything from tiny, like Eminem in Islington Academy, which was a 400 cap room, through to, working in Metallica at the O2. But right. The one that I'm most proud of is probably very, very recently. We've been working with Mountjoy, running their VIP for them. And to go back to a show after being off for as long as we have, and knowing that it's all come together, and watching fans be a part of that and the band being part of that, honestly, it brought tears to my eyes.
You mentioned knowing that you have been a part of these shows. I'm hoping you can unpack that a little bit. What is your day-to-day? Is it different every day? How exactly, where among the, food chain of sort of getting these things put together do you land, or are you in every single spot?
It depends. So I'm with Stage Pilot at the moment, and my job there is very different to any of the other roles I've previously had. So for Mountjoy, I work with Stage Pilot and I head up biz dev and strategy for them. So I work with the band to come up with different activations and things that, can make them more money fundamentally, as well as kind of create these very special experiences for their fans, coming up with an idea and then kind of seeing it through to fruition. The touring, whether it's the merch pieces, whether it's just the logistics of what time to get people to the box office to get them checked in and how they're being checked in, and through to then actually then going through to the show and making sure there's a bar open for them when they get there, that kind of stuff. The main thing I've done throughout my career is ticketing. So it's making sure that people are able to get access to first access to tickets. So I would run all the fan club pre-sales. I've gone from running guest lists to selling tickets to, helping kind of with, making sure the band can get to the stage and so on. I've kind of done a bit of everything, but solely concentrated on ticketing throughout my life.
Okay. Very cool. There's so many parts to it. I want to back up a little bit because I love what you said about the idea that it was such a special experience, the first concert that you went back to after COVID. So I want to forget for a minute what makes live concerts work. What do you think makes virtual concerts work? What makes fans show up to a virtual event and engage?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I think, virtual shows have really shifted and changed over the past, year and a half. I think when we first went into the pandemic, I don't know that anyone saw that virtual concerts were going to take off in the way that they did. From our point, we put on virtual shows within Stage Pilot, and we've seen, lots of success with basically trying to create something that's unique. So that to me is a super important piece. It's not just about kind of creating an event that you can find on YouTube. So every time we're putting an event together, it's about making sure that it's focused on that artist. It's definitely not kind of one cat fits all. It has to be, who's the artist, what do they do, what are their fans like, how do they interact with technology, like what can we do to kind of make this as simple as possible for them. Time zones is also a super important thing. Typically, we always look at having 4 time zones because everybody needs to be able to access it at the time. Like having a concert at 10 o'clock in the morning over here kind of sucks. We also try to always create a safe environment where people can interact with their kind of like-minded people, their community around, because fan bases are very, very special. Once you're a fan of something and you meet someone else that's a fan, it immediately creates a connection there. Yeah. So being able to create somewhere where people feel safe and they're able to interact with the artist, and the artist is also safe. Merch is also important. That's something that I kind of thought of from the beginning, is that, it might not be a tour that you're putting on, so you might not have like a full tour back t-shirt, but you do still want to have something to say that you went to that show and you were part of that event. So, whether it's a t-shirt or a poster or a laminate or whatever it may be, something that you can still kind of put up on your wall and show your friends and kind of say, I was part of this historic show. Do you see,
do t-shirts just consistently do the best throughout what you usually see?
It's kind of just always a no-brainer, isn't it? It's something. It's easy to ship. They're not that expensive. If you look at posters, they're difficult to ship. So posters, to me, I always prefer, my back wall is covered in show posters, but t-shirts are always going to be the number one because people like to wear their artist.
All right. So let's shift back a little bit to live concerts. Our artists and the people who support them want to put on obviously the best live experiences that they can, but they don't have a lot of money. A lot of them aren't signed. What are a couple things that you think they should be thinking about or even doing when it comes to their own live events?
The most important thing I think is availability. You need to make sure you're there. You need to be communicating with everyone. There's a lot of bands and managers who I work with who are like, we're ready to do VIP. We want to do meet and greets. Depending on the size of them, the first thing I say is don't charge anything. After every single show, before every single show, go and meet everyone, go and talk to everyone, be there, get that face to face, have those photos taken, make sure you're all over everyone's socials, make sure that people are connecting with you. The moment you do that and people start feeling some kind of connection, that's the beginning of your core fan base. Once people believe in you, then they will start talking about you to everybody else. Merch is also another thing that I think is super important. When they're on event, merch is key for every artist. I've said this with virtual events. It's every event. It's building a fan base. Whether you're a baby artist to a stadium artist, your merch is everything. There's artists that we work with who create mascots and so on to go around with them, and it's part of that brand. And I think as soon as you start establishing your brand, then people, if it resonates with your fans, then they will continue to sell your brand for you. Signing stuff, it's such a wonderful, and it's priceless. The moment you've got something that's signed, the idea, of course, that every band does go on to grow into a stadium-sized band, but it means that core fan base is I remember seeing them at the Troubadour, and there was only 500 people there, and they signed this for me. it really does kind of go a long way, and it doesn't cost a single penny to do it.
Do you ever find that artists push back on that? And if so, why do you think that is?
There definitely are some artists that push back on it, but it's very difficult to not do that if you want to go to the next stage of your career. If you don't connect with your fans, then it will put a huge barrier in your career for sure. It's not easy to kind of move on from that point. It's as much about your music as it is about you these days. People have to like you.
I just keep hearing every single episode of this show, that is sort of what it all comes down to, is if you are an artist or a manager, it comes down to connecting with those super fans, because they then go and sort of like spread the gospel of you.
There's so many entry points, as we said at the very beginning of this conversation. There are so many entry points. There are so many different parts of music that, whether that's live events or recorded music or whatever it may be, it's about kind of, I think, narrowing down exactly what interests you and then working out where to go from there. Internships are incredible. Most people I know take interns on, and it's a great way of kind of getting your foot in the door and making contact. It's about being available and also being very prepared to get your hands dirty. I think it's very easy to kind of go in and expect to kind of, be, rubbing shoulders with artists and having glamorous jobs. In any capacity, I would always suggest someone goes down to a venue. I think it's a really great place to kind of start learning, because, there are so many different pieces to it. Even working within the bar, I think, is still great, because you're still learning how the whole venue comes together.
Right. It just seems like from your talking about it, you also have to be patient, because you're dealing with customers in a way. And then also, and I know that every job listing ever says this, but ability to multitask, like hyper organization, is probably a skill of a lot of people of you and a lot of people that you work with.
The way that I tackle everything is through the eyes of a fan, which is not always the way people do it, but I try to understand exactly kind of where a fan's coming from, and whether that's from, the price of a ticket, buying a ticket, the process of being able to secure that, making sure they know about it, making sure that everything is easy, through to getting the instructions as to, how to get into the venue and how all of that's going to be working. And then the actual experience while you're there as well. Everything should be fan focused. The key to all of this, again, is super fans. They're the people we want to be looking after. But yeah, you definitely need to be highly organized. If you've got 3-4 stadium tours that you're looking after at any one time, then you really do need to be spread very thinly and know everything about everything. The most important thing to me, especially if, when I'm looking at hiring people, is passion. And I know it sounds quite cliche to say it, but you've got to love what you do, because the hours can be long. You can start working at 6 a.m. through to, midnight. If you don't have the passion, and if you don't get excited about it, and if you don't have that feeling when you walk into a venue and kind of be like, I did this, then it's probably not for you.
Well, that's a perfect segue, because I am very curious about your take on the future of live music.
I started working in live music when I was 19. And I have been the cockiest person my entire life, just being like, it's never going to go away. Live music is always going to be here. This is going to be something that people are always going to need in their lives, regardless of what happens in the world. Little did I know there was going to be a pandemic and it wouldn't be allowed to continue. Anything that we can do to protect it now, I think, is super important. And I'm a huge believer in, if you're not well, don't come out. If you have a problem with wearing a mask, then don't come out. It's, we should be protecting everyone around us, and the band and the music and the venues and the industry. It's really difficult to tell a band member to stay away from a fan for their own safety, because human instinct tells you that if someone, wants to shake your hand, then you shake their hand.
Right.
But it's very difficult to try and say, please don't do that, because we need to keep you healthy. Now, in order to kind of keep it as safe as possible, we're keeping the artist away from everyone, and we're doing virtual meet and greets before the shows instead. A lot of fans are absolutely loving it, because rather than just having that 2-second, photo and move on, they're actually having a conversation with their artist and saying things like, this poster behind me, I got this from your tour. And, it's incredible to watch. And I think the artists are also really enjoying it, because well, firstly, they don't have to leave their houses. It's quite easy for them to do that.
Yeah.
But I really do think that this kind of hybrid of VIP is going to be the future, because I think at this point we've been exposed to so much new technology and so many possibilities over the past year and a half that they're not going to go anywhere.
I love this idea that even though the pandemic is changing things in a way, technology allows for even more sort of broad experience, more audiences, like, sort of these Instagram live things that feel very intimate, but there are a lot of people actually watching and being able to get involved.
The difference between a live event and a virtual event is that you can have a plan B for an in-person event, and there isn't much of a plan B for a virtual event. Everyone is coming on to look at the show at this exact moment, and the artist has to be ready at that exact moment. Mm-hmm. And you're also relying on technology, and people's internet comes in and out, and it does lead for kind of a bad experience. Outside of kind of these like hybrid experiences, like I said, like doing things like the virtual meet and greets, I really, that's never going to go anywhere at this point. It's such a incredible way, I think, for fans and artists to talk to each other.
Interesting. Yeah, I had not even heard of these virtual meet and greets until now, and I think that is fascinating.
Every single artist and every single fan that comes through, they are so blown away by the experience. And it can be anything from, like, we've done artists who they initially started by being completely done up. Their hair was done, their nails were done, they were in the studio, they were so ready. And then after the fourth session, they were just like lying in their bed eating chicken wings. And but honestly, like the fan is still sitting there going, oh my god, this is your house, is that your dog, is that your son, is that your boyfriend? The fans get something out of this that no one ever has before, and vice versa. The artist also does, or the label, whoever's kind of watching, they're getting data on the fans in a way they never have before, because they're learning about who these people are and what they like.
I'm like so fascinated by this now. Your meet and greet is with your favorite artist, and they're like potentially on their couch in sweats.
Like we've done ones before with the artist's child has been running around, and the child has taken most of the calls. And again, I was just like, I don't know if we can sell this. Is this going to be a problem? And everyone loved it. You get a photo and a video afterwards, and everyone was just like, I just met so-and-so's daughter. It's so amazing. And it's a real kind of, it's a special experience. It's the hugest positive that's come out of the pandemic. People are now leaning on this technology in a way that was never done before. It's wonderful to be a part of. It's new, it's exciting, and who knows where it goes from here.
I love everything you're saying. I think my favorite thing that you said actually is that in order to keep live music alive and well during the pandemic and in this new era, we have to protect it and not just throw everything out the window and keep going with zero regard to, masks and vaccines and things like that, but actually to respect those things, because that in turn protects live music. And I hope all of our listeners keep that in mind. I think that is beautiful.
It's how I feel. It truly is. I'm an old romantic with all of these things. I love live music, and I'll be so sad if anyone takes it away from me again.
Thank you so much. This has been very educational, but also super fun. So I thank you. This was really cool.
It's an absolute pleasure. It was lovely to meet you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow Quadio on Instagram and YouTube for more episodes and a lot more content just like this, all for young creatives. Also, be sure to follow our guests at the links in the description, and we will see you next time.